Hello, friends. A very warm welcome to Lit eCity, the channel which serves your need regarding English literature, where we discuss great writers, important works, and different other things which are helpful in your preparation for NAT and other exams related with English literature. Friends, in today's session, we will start discussing about a literary giant, a man whose work has been praised and critically examined throughout the globe. We are talking about Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie, who was born in India and then he became a global citizen with the taunt of his work. He is conferred the title of Sir Ahmad Salman Rushdie, whose work are not only very controversial to the we can say the limit of death threats, but also they are the great experimentation in the postmodern techniques. Dear friends, having a brief biographical look at Salman Rushdie, he was born on June 19th, 1947 in Bombay, which we now call Mumbai. He was the only son of a wealthy Indian businessman and a school teacher. Later, he was sent overseas to the rugby school in Warwickshire, England, and he was just in his teens. There, he pursued his formal schooling. In 1964, his Indian family migrated to Karachi, Pakistan, and Rushdie stayed there in England to study history at King's College in Cambridge. After graduation in 1968, he started his career with a Pakistani television channel. Later in 1981, which was the beginning of his writing career, for a small scale, he worked as a copywriter for the advertisement agency Ogilvy and Mather and Charles Barker as a freelancer. These were the formative years of Salman Rushdie. Talking about on personal front, the novelist Salman Rushdie has married 4 times. His first wife was Clarissa Luard, and she remained for 11 years from 1976 to 1987. Then he married the American novelist Marianne Wiggins in 1988, but later he divorced her too. His third wife was Elizabeth West, whom he married in 1997 and separated in 2004. And in 2004, Rushdie married Padma Lakshmi, an Indian American model and actress, but the couple got separated in 2007. Okay, we now come to his novels, and we will start with his first published work, Grimus. Before beginning to discuss this novel, I must here inform you that most novels of Salman Rushdie, magic realism technique is basically used by Salman Rushdie to present his stories. Magic realism is a kind of novel in which there is a very dim line. In fact, there is no line between reality and fiction. Some things are presented with the historical background, factual background. That is why it is realism. But some supernatural, some magical, some illogical elements are incorporated within it. So it is neither pure fantasy nor pure factual or we can say realistic literature. It is blending of both. A postmodern novel ka important feature is magic realism. This novel, Grimus, which was published in 1975, the title of the novel is an anagram actually of the name Simorgh. It means the immense, all-wise fabled bird of pre-Islamic Persian mythology, and the story revolves around Flapping Eagle. This is the name of the protagonist, who is an immortal exona. Now you can understand the magical elements. He is an immortal exona Indian, or we can say the Native American, wandering the earth for 777 years, 7 months and 7 days. Once again, a magical element, a number which is related with magic, searches an alternate dimension known as Calf Island for his missing sister, Bird Dog. So it's because we are talking about dimension and other things, many critics consider it a part of science fiction also. Guided by Virgil Jones, who is an exiled associate of Grimus, the dimension creator, Flapping Eagle must climb Calf Mountain, survive the mind-altering dimension fever, infiltrate the complex society of K. Now, K is the name of the town where others who have chosen immortality have come to live. By learning all he can about K, Flapping Eagle hopes to challenge his antagonist and doppelganger. Doppelganger is a concept in which we consider that there is a person almost same as ours, that is known as our doppelganger. So Grimus is doppelganger of Flapping Eagle. Uncover the secret of his sister's disappearance and locate the source of Calf Island's shifting dimension, the thing that is responsible for this shifting dimension. There are three dimensions on earth, that this fourth dimension, the shifting dimension, the reason behind is the stone rose, which is an ancient instrument of imagination that controls dimensional space. Flapping Eagle is a guest in the house of Ignatius Quasimodo Grib. Now, Ignatius Quasimodo Grib, he is a philosopher who has convinced the town inhabitants that Grimus and the stone rose are meaningless myths. Grib is also an author. He has written The All-Purpose Quotable Philosophy, which is a book of cliches designed to spread his ideas among the people of K. Living with Grib and his wife Elfrida, Eagle also meets the town leader Count Alexander Cherkasov, who is a Russian aristocrat, and his wife Irina. Both of the beautiful wives are mysteriously attracted to Flapping Eagle, and he has an affair with Irina Cherkasova, but he later falls in love with more faithful Elfrida, and Elfrida tells her husband that she loves the handsome Amerindian. Now, his illusions, this professor's illusion about his marriage, they are shattered, and Grib immediately loses his ability to conceptualize a rational world and dies as a result. Now, the entire world of Calf Island begin to fall prey once again to the dimensional distortion of the Grimus effect. As the town's illusion begin to collapse, Bird Dog, the sister whom Flapping Eagle is searching, she appears and escorts Flapping Eagle to Grimus' house on the summit of Calf Mountain. Grimus is willing to let Flapping Eagle destroy him, but his condition is Eagle will agree to keep and preserve the rose. Or we can in other words say that Grimus is hinting that I may die, but this rose will continue, or the shifting dimension will continue, and Eagle will be in the charge. A conflict ensues in Flapping Eagle's mind. Eagle finally chooses to reject it. He succeeds in destroying the rose. By doing so, he brings destruction upon himself and his world. So this novel, which is written as part science fiction, part magic realism, retelling of certain myths of pre-Islamic society, it was first experiment by Salman Rushdie into novel writing. It was very critically acclaimed, and critics all over the world find the freshness of vision and complexity of technique in this particular work. The next work which brought Salman Rushdie international fame, many awards and great status is Midnight's Children, which was published in 1981. The story goes around that at the exact moment of India's independence from British, Salim Sinai, who is the protagonist, he is born, And obviously he is handcuffed to history. This is a phrase used by Rushdie to point out the plea of Salim Sinai. His own fate is intertwined with that of his nation. Both Salim and nation born at the same time. Salim's entire body is cracking, crumbling under the stress of too much history, and he is slowly dying, disintegrating into 630 million particles of anonymous, necessarily oblivious dust. This is basically destiny of a nation. Salim must work fast if he is to tell his story before he dies, and he begins with his Kashmiri grandfather Adam Aziz. Adam has just returned to Kashmir from medical school in Germany, and he is disillusioned with his traditional Indian life. One morning, while kneeling to pray, Adam strikes his nose on the ground. 3 small drops of blood escape from his nose. And from that moment, he vows never again to bow to any man or God. Adam is told he is basically a medical practitioner. He is told about the illness of Naseem Ghani, the daughter of a local landowner. Arriving at the Ghanis, Adam finds Naseem hidden behind a large sheet with a small hole cut in the center, and he is made to examine her through the opening. Obviously, he finds it very ludicrous thing, but Adam and Naseem, with many meetings, they fall in love and they are finally married and to prepare to move to Agra for Adam's new university job. In Agra, Adam and Naseem are witnesses to the violence of the British military, and in the aftermath of a massacre, Adam befriends the Hummingbird. Hummingbird is a pro-Indian Muslim politician who inspires optimism throughout Agra. Adam also meets Nadir Khan, who is Hummingbird's private secretary, and after the Hummingbird is murdered by assassins, Nadir takes refuge under Adam's floorboards, much to the dismay of his wife Naseem, known in her marriage as Reverend Mother. While living under the floor, Nadir marries Adam's daughter Mumtaz, spending 3 blissful years together underground. Ultimately, it is discovered that Nadir is impotent and he is forced to divorce Mumtaz. Mumtaz soon remarries Ahmad Sinai. Now, Ahmad Sinai, he changes her name to Amina, and the two move to Bombay after she becomes pregnant. Ahmed and Amina buy a mansion from William Mathold, who is a British colonist and who is preparing to return to London after India's independence, and they move in, living amid the Englishman's belongings and customs. Amina goes into labor on the eve of India's independence along with another pregnant woman from Mathold's estate named Vanita, who is the wife of a poor accordionist, a sort of musician. Both women give birth at the stroke of midnight. Vanita dies shortly after leaving her infant son Shiva. So Shiva and Salim, they are born approximately at the same moment, exactly, in fact we should say same moment as India became independent. Alone with the 2 children of midnight, a midwife named Mary Pereira, she switches the name tags of children, effectively replacing rich with poor, and this is her private act of revolution. Mary also offers her services to Amina Sinai as an ayah to care for her infant Salim. She readily accepts. Mary continues to keep her secret for several years before finally blurting it out, a victim of her own guilt. Now everybody knows that Salim is not actually child of Amina. Salim grows. It is clear he is not a normal child. He grows too quickly. He rarely blinks, and after an accident, he begins to hear voices made possible by his large congested nose. These all are supernatural, or we can say magical elements in the novel. The voices in Salim's head are actually of the other children born during the midnight hour of independence, the metaphorical mirror of our nation, who each also happen to be endowed with different magical powers. Salim attempts to organize the children, creating a form for them in his mind, but because of their prejudices, they are unable to band together. Ultimately, it is Shiva who succeeds in dividing the children, and Salim is left helpless. Salim continues to grow and move with his family to Pakistan. Civil unrest brews leading up to Indo-Pakistan war. He is again left helpless because bombs from an air strike kill his family. Salim is also hit in the head by an airborne spittoon, causing him to forget his identity. He is drafted into the Pakistani army and he witnesses unspeakable events, brutality of the soldiers, finally running away into the jungle to avoid further violence. When he emerges from the jungle, the war is ending, India is victorious. He runs into Parvati the witch. She is another fellow child of midnight, who immediately recognizes Salim. The two fall in love, and when Salim is unable to father her children, Parvati puts a spell on Shiva. He soon impregnates her. He quickly loses interest because this is a characteristic habit of Shiva. He always does where pregnancy is concerned. Parvati is free to marry Salim, who has agreed to father her unborn child. As Parvati goes into labor, civil unrest in India continues. Indira Gandhi declares a state of emergency. Parvati finally gives birth to a son, but she is killed. At the same time, Salim is kidnapped by Shiva and dragged in a van, taken along with the other children of midnight, and they all are forcibly sterilized during Gandhi's sterilization program. Emergency ends. Salim and other children are released from their imprisonment. Salim soon finds his son. He moves back to Bombay, where he discovers that Mary Pereira is the owner of a local pickle factory, and he takes asylum with her. Salim finishes the telling of his story, and he also decides to tell his future. He starts with his wedding to Padma, his companion and audience for his story. Padma and Salim are to be married in Kashmir, but before they are, Salim succumbs to the cracks in his skins. He crumbles into 600 million pieces of dust. So this novel ends. This is such a, we can say, popular and critically acclaimed novel. Rushdie won Booker Prize, Booker of the Booker Prize, and Golden Booker Prize. This novel is part of, we can say, legacy of postmodern literature. No postmodern discussion is complete without the discussion of Rushdie, and especially this novel. Next, we talk about Shame, which was published in 1983. It is basically a thinly veiled story which takes place in Kew, which is a fictional version of Quetta, a town in Pakistan. We meet Sufia, whose name itself means wisdom, but who is rather foolish. Her parents are each ashamed, the title shame, for different reasons. Her mother assumes God made Sufia stupid as a punishment for her own infidelity. Her father is ashamed because Sufia is a girl while he wanted a son, and Sufia learns to feel deeply embarrassed right from her childhood without much intelligence to go on, and that shame continues to build. One day, Sufia goes crazy and murders over 200 turkeys, biting their heads off and shredding their bodies. She becomes very ill for a season. Dr. Umar Khayyam Shakil saves her, and he also falls in love with her. They get married, but they don't consummate their marriage. One day, Dr. Shakil hears of 4 decapitated young men, all covered in their own semen, and and he suspects Sufia. He meets with Sufia's father, Raja Haider, who is now the president of Pakistan. A political coup. Dr. Shakil must leave for his political liberalism. Lekin Sufia tracks him down and brutally murders him before literally exploding into a ball of fire. Once again, there are many magical elements. Along with this plot, there is another plot line that of Harappa family, who is connected to Haider family. Iskandar Harappa, the future prime minister, he is married to Raja Haider's cousin. Haider becomes Harappa's second in command. Harappa's nepotistic tendency lead to the development of an oligarchy, which eventually overthrow him. The former chairman Harappa is hanged for crimes against the people. The tales of various women in Haider and Harappa families are interspersed in the plot. Then we come to the Satanic Verses in 1988. This was the novel which actually put life of Salman Rushdie in danger, because many Muslim Dharma gurus find this novel to be, we can say, blasphemous to the Prophet, and that is why a fatwa was issued against him. Actually, the title of this novel refers to a group of elite Quranic verses that allowed for prayer of intercession to be made to three pagan Meccan goddess, Allat, Uzza and Manat. The particular portion of the novel that deals with the satanic verses is based on the accounts of the historians Al-Waqidi and Al-Tabari. These two historians actually have told the story about how in Quran, which is actually against all kind of pagan worship, the Quran allows worship to three goddesses. So this is all about the satanic verses. The outrage among Muslims resulted in a fatwa calling for Rushdie's death issued by Ayatollah Khomeini, who was the supreme leader of Iran at that time. He issued this fatwa on 14 February 1989. Rushdie has to go into hiding for a long time. Actually, Iran took back the fatwa, but still Salman did not publicly appear for a long time. Many translators of this novel, like the Japanese and German translator, they were killed. There were also attempts on Salman Rushdie's life, but he was fortunate to escape it. And very late, he publicly actually made an appearance and told that it has nothing to do with, we can say, blasphemy against the Prophet. The novel contains 9 chapters, each one having a different titles. 5 chapters of the novel are located in contemporary London. The main plot, which forms the bulk, and there are 2 subplots, which are the story of Mahound and Aisha, the butterfly girl. The part first is it starts with the jumbo jet Boston, which explodes over the English Channel. 2 passengers, Jibreel Farishta, who is a famous Bollywood actor, and Saladin Chamcha, who is a voiceover actor who lives in London, they survive. Jibreel started working as a delivery boy when he was a teenager. When his parents died, he moved in with a foster family and he eventually becomes an actor. Shortly before the fateful flight, Jibreel had a bout with mental illness, but he recovered. Soon after his recovery, he fell in love with Alaluya Khan, who was an English mountain climber. Out of jealousy, his former lover, Rekha Merchant, committed suicide, and her ghost haunts Jibreel for the rest of the novel. Jibriel's affair with Alaluya inspired him to follow her to London. On the other hand, Saladin, whose birth name was Salahuddin Chamchawala, he grew up in Bombay, where he was molested by an older man, had a troubled relationship with his father, Changiz Chamchawala. He always dreamed of moving to London and got his wish when his father sent him to a boarding school there. He became estranged from his father when Changiz remarried, and Saladin was particularly incensed that his new stepmother had the same name as his actual mother, that is Nasreen. After university, Saladin became a voice actor and married a beautiful troubled white woman named Pamela Lovelace. Shortly before the fateful flight, he returned to India to perform in a G.B. Shaw play. There, he started an affair with an old friend, Jeannie Vakil. Right before he leaves to return to London, Saladin breaks up with Jeannie because he felt she was too sympathetic to his father, Changiz. So he is not able to overcome his hatred for his own father. The doomed flight was hijacked by four Sikh nationalists who landed it in the desert and held the passengers hostages for 111 days. Eventually, they took off for London. However, while over the English Channel, the hijacker fought among themselves and accidentally detonated the plane. So this is the background. This is actually the first part is the background of the two central characters of the narrative, Jibril and Saladin. During the fall from the airplane, Jibril has the first of the several elaborate visions. This vision introduces Jahiliya subplot, which is actually a revisionist retelling of the early history of Islam. It follows Mahund. Actually, Mahund is also used for Muhammad, which is analog for Muhammad, who is a businessman who starts a new religion called submission. Submission in the pagan city of Jahiliya. Submission is also literal translation of word Islam. He faces opposition from the authorities, especially Karim Abu Simbel, the city's grandee, who hires Baal, who is a poet, to write verses attacking Mahmud. Abu Simbel offers protection for Mahmud's sex if he acknowledges three of Jahiliya's most important goddesses alongside Allah. Mahmud climbs a mountain to consult with the archangel Jibril, who seems to affirm Abu Simbel's request. So Mahmud publicly acknowledges the existence of Allah's daughter. That is why three pagan goddesses. However, he soon recants, takes back, declaring the revelation actually came from Satan, satanic verses, not God. Abu Simbel and his wife Hind retaliate by murdering Mahmud's wife and uncle and confining his followers to ghettos. Eventually, Mahmud and other adherents of submission flee to the more tolerant city of Yathrib. Jibril and Saladin in the present undergo a transformation as they take on the personality of the Archangel Gabriel and Satan respectively. They worship on the English coast where they are taken in by Rosa Diamond, who is a senile old woman, but they are reported as illegal immigrants. The police arrest Saladin, who has started to turn into a goat, the magical element. Jibril, probably because dressed in Rosa's late husband's clothing, is not arrested. Jibril listens to Rosa Diamond's story about her colorful youth in Argentina. He takes her to dancing, but she dies mysteriously shortly thereafter. On the way to London, the police officers beat Saladin. Now he is completely a bleating goat man. Saladin is taken to a hospital to recover from his injuries. His physiotherapist and his fellow patients, they all have been transformed into animals as well. Actually, Rushdie implies this is the result of a prejudice of white English people who treat the immigrants just as animals. They escape the hospital and Saladin goes to his apartment, and Saladin's wife Pamela, she herself is having an affair with Saladin's rival Jumpy Joshi. Saladin had called home from Rosa's house. Jumpy answered the phone. He tells Pamela that her husband is alive. She doesn't believe him until he arrives to surprise them. On the other hand, Jibril rides a train to London where a fellow passenger, John Maslama, informs him he is the Archangel Jibril. Jibril does not believe him and he heads to Alalua's house. In the next section, two more of Jibriel's dreams are presented. First vision, a conservative Imam enlists Jibreel to help him regain control of his homeland, Desh, which is an analog for Iran. The Imam forces Jibreel to fight the goddess Allah, who has been incarnated as the Empress of Desh, Aisha. Now Jibreel kills her and the Imam becomes the absolute ruler of Desh. The second dream takes place in the rural village of Titlipur. A landowner, Mirza Sayyid Akhtar, tries and fails to conceive a child with his wife Misal. They adopt an itinerant toy maker Aisha after finding her in their courtyard eating butterflies. She is beautiful but insane. As Aisha grows older, Mirza Sayyid begins to desire her but does not actively pursue her. He is somewhat afraid of her. One day, Aisha's hair turned white, her dress turns into butterflies. She claims she has lain with Archangel Jibreel, a news which breaks the heart of her suitor, Osman the clown. After this, Aisha and Michelle become very close. One day, Aisha diagnoses Michelle with terminal breast cancer, makes a prophecy. Michelle will be cured if the entire village makes a pilgrimage to Makkah on foot. Obviously, it is impossible because the Arabian Sea stands between Titlipur and Makkah, but Aisha promises the Archangel will part the sea for them. Mirza Sayyid is skeptical. He doesn't believe her prophecy but follows in his Mercedes to make sure Michelle stays safe. On the other hand, Jumpy Joshi hides Saladin at the hotel, which is owned by the neighbors, Sufyans. Their daughter, Michelle Sufyan and Anahita are delighted by his transformation. Saladin learns his colleague, Mimi Mamaulin, is dating the scam artist Billy Batuta and he has lost his job as a voice actor. He grows too large. Michelle and her boyfriend, Hanif Johnson, takes him to stay in a basement of a nightclub. Saladin spends that night consumed with hatred of Jibreel because he blames for all of his problem. The rage transforms Saladin back into a human being. Jibreel has a vision wherein an angel orders him to leave Alalia and spread the word of God through London. He complies, but everyone on the street thinks him insane. He has initial success with Orphea Phillips, who is a ticket seller, but he worsens her situation. He becomes so frustrated, he walks into an oncoming traffic because he is desperate for attention. The car that hits him is driven by S.S. Sisodia, who concocts a scheme to produce a new film to return Jibreel to the spotlight. Sisodia offers him a role playing the angel Jibreel. When he appears, the audience rushes the stage and Jibreel levitates into the air and disappears. When he wakes up, he is back on Alulia's doorstep. The sixth section resumes the Jahila plotline 25 years later after the end of part 2. Submission has spread in Yathrib and Mahound decides to make a second attempt at converting Jahiliya. His disciple Salman has lost faith after noticing that Mahound's proclamations are always seem to benefit Mahound. Fearing he would be punished, Salman flees to Jahiliya and confides his doubt to the poet Bal, who was originally chosen to write verses against him. Shortly after Salman arrives, Mahound follows and converts most of the Jahiliya, including his old nemesis Abu Simbel. He establishes a theocracy that tightly controls the life of people and persecutes dissenters like Salman. Bal goes into hiding, joining the male staff of a brothel called the Curtain. He encourages the prostitutes to take the identities of Mahound's 12 wives. One day, Salman stops by to say goodbye to Bal. Shortly after that, the brothel's employees are arrested, tried and executed. Not much later, Mahound dies. His last vision is that of goddess Allah, one of the deities he repudiated in part 2. In part 7th, Saladin's wife Pamela becomes pregnant by Jumpy Joshi. A prominent black activist, Uhuru Simba, is falsely accused of being a serial killer, that gruesome Granny Ripper. His arrest infuriates the immigrant and left-wing communities, who begin to demonstrate on his behalf. At a meeting, Saladin sees Michelle Sufyan, to whom he is attracted, but her forehead is burning. He also has a vision of Angel Azariel, Jabriel's lieutenant, coming down to smite him. This omen makes him realize that the accident has changed him. He decides to succumb to evil and kill Jabriel. Saladin has an opportunity to do so at a party hosted by Billy Battuta and Mimi, held on the set of a film adaptation of Charles Dickens' Our Mutual Friend. When Saladin spots Jabriel there, he prepares to exact his revenge. However, Jabriel is sedated by antipsychotics and doesn't recognize Saladin's intention. As they talk, Saladin mentions Jumpy, and Jabriel convinces himself that Alulia is also having an affair with Jumpy. Jabriel tries to murder Jumpy, but only succeeds in knocking him out. On the other hand, Saladin can never quite bring himself to commit the murder. Saladin instigates Jabriel to make him believe that Alaluin is unfaithful. Jabriel leaves Alaluia. Meanwhile, John Maslama, the businessman from the train, stays committed to the idea that Jabriel is the archangel and sells Jabriel a trumpet that Jabriel names Azariel. Dr. Uhuru Simba dies in the prison under suspicious circumstances, which incites the immigrant community to riot. The unrest intensifies when the Granny Ripper murders continue, which proves Simba was innocent. Two fires start in the Brick Hill neighborhood, one at Sofiana's cafe and one at the Community Relations Center. The second fire kills Jumpy and Pamela. The first becomes a point of confrontation for Jabriel and Saladin. When Saladin sees the cafe fire, he attempts to save Sufyan, but he himself is trapped under a beam. Jabriel, who has realized that it was Saladin who made the phone calls to estrange her with Alaluia, follows Saladin into the burning building with the intention of killing him, but decides at the last minute to save him instead. In the part 8, we resumes the Titlipur plot. Aisha's employer, who is the toy merchant Sri Srinivas, he joins the pilgrimage when he sees the enormous flock of butterflies that follow them. Pilgrims begin to die from thirst and exhaustion, and Aisha develops an authoritarian streak, insisting that the pilgrims leave the corpses by the side of road rather than burying them. Mirza Said tries to convince the villagers to turn back, but most of them ignore him. However, he does gain some supporters, including Osman, Sri Srinivas, Michelle's brother, Mrs. Qureshi, and Muhammad Deen, who is a village elder whose wife was one of the first fatalities. When the group arrives at the seaside suburb of Sarang, a violent mob awaits them. A torrential rain disperses the angry mob, keeping the pilgrims safe. Aisha allows the Imam to order a baby stoned to death. This horrifies the pilgrims, and many of them loses faith in Aisha. They follow her to beach anyway, where the butterflies take the shape of Archangel Jabriel. This restores their faith. They walk into the water. Mirza Said and other doubters dive in to rescue them, but do not succeed. When the doubters awake in the hospital, all except Mirza Said claim they saw the sea part for the pilgrims to walk through, despite the fact that pilgrims' bodies have started to wash up on the shore. Mirza Said returns home, and as he is dying, he has a vision of Aisha and finally opens his heart to her. The sea parts and they walk to Makkah together. In the last part, 18 months after the Brick Hill fires, Saladin gets word that his father is dying. He immediately forgives Changiz and returns to India. where he tenderly cares for his father, reconciles with his stepmother Nasreen. When his father dies, Saladin changes his name back to Salahuddin Chamchawala and reconciles with Genie, John and Bhupen, who were his associates. Jibreel also returns to India after making his Jahila and Titlipur visions into films, which are both flops. SS Sisodia brings Alulia to Jibrail's house, tries to reconcile them. Still tortured by Saladin's prank calls, Jibreel murders them both. He then goes to Saladin, confesses what he has done and kills himself. Saladin sadly leaves the house with Genie. So friends, this is first part of our discussion on Salman Rushdie. We have discussed 4 of his novels. He has in total written 11 novels, and in the second part we will discuss other novels by Salman Rushdie, and I request you to go through these works because he is one of the most important fictional voice of the present world. Thank you, dear friends.